Hi, I'm Annie Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington Realtors Legal Hotline lawyer. In this video, I want to talk about how you sever an agency relationship. We talk a lot about forming agency relationships, but a question I've received recently is, let's say we have two co-listing brokers, and one of them wants to represent a buyer exclusively, or vice versa. We have two brokers who are both representing a buyer, and the buyer wants to purchase one of their listings. And so they want to create a scenario where one broker can represent the seller and the other broker will represent the buyer with two exclusive relationships. How do you do that? And the answer is the same, whether you're severing an agency relationship with the seller or an agency relationship with the buyer. And let's be very clear. What we're talking about in this video is not terminating an agency relationship. Because remember, who is the agency agreement a contract between? It is a contract between the consumer, whether it's the buyer or the seller, and the brokerage firm. As part of the agreement between the consumer and the firm, a broker, an agent, is named to serve as an agent of the party in addition to the agency relationship created between the consumer and the firm. So we're not talking about severing the relationship between the consumer and the firm. That relationship remains intact. The only question is, if there were two brokers named as agents of the seller through this buyer agency agreement or listing agreement, can we sever the agency relationship of one of those two brokers, leaving one agent still named as, or one broker still named as the agent of the consumer along with the firm itself? And the answer is yes, it's easy to do. Recall that the agency of individual brokers to a consumer is created through the brokerage services agreement, whether it's a listing agreement or the buyer brokerage services agreement. The only way that an individual broker licensed to a firm becomes an agent of a consumer is because they are named in an agency agreement as an agent of the consumer. So if the consumer and the firm agree that they want to amend their relationship, amend their contract to remove one of those brokers as an agent of the consumer, then that's what you're going to do. If you want to use the statewide forms, statewide form 18 is the amendment addendum to the listing agreement. If you're amending the buyer agency relationship, then you'll use form 41A to amend that agreement. You use that amendment agreement and you make clear in the other section of each form. Each form has some boilerplate terms where you check a box if you're trying to utilize those boilerplate provisions. But both of those amendment forms also have as their last boilerplate provision a blank space under the heading of other. And so that's the provision that you would use. And in the other provision, you would draft language making clear that the agency relationship between the consumer and the named broker is severed, and that the broker no longer represents the consumer. Brokers, you already should know, but just as a reminder, when your agency relationship with a consumer ends, whether it's severed like we're describing here, or it just ends because you fulfilled the terms of the contract, or the contract expires, when your relationship with your agency relationship ends with a consumer, you still have two remaining duties: the duty to protect all client confidences learned during that agency relationship, and the duty to timely account for all personal property of the consumer that you might have taken control of from that consumer during the relationship. If you have questions on this topic or any other, please ask me a question by visiting warealtor.org and following the links to the legal hotline. Thank you for being a Washington Realtors member.